have a couple of goals in my life. I think, there's a few things I want to do before I die. One, I want to fly on the Concorde. Two, I want to learn Japanese. Not that I care about Japan or anything or about their culture. It's just that I was at a Japanese restaurant and I saw this a-hole, obviously American, ordering in Japanese, and I wanted to do that. And the third thing I'd like to do, I want to visit the former Soviet Union.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. Today's a 2 for Tuesday, folks. That means that I may remember to do a second show tonight. But we're just goofing. We're just looking at things. I wanna chat with the Wicked audience. See if you guys have any suggestions for what we should cover. And on that note, take this legacy sheet here. I'm gonna put this to you. If anybody has a clip that you think we should watch together, maybe you think we should, old pal Jake should toss some suggestions for what we can do about it. Put it in that sheet that I've just shared. And hopefully the clip is relatively short. I'm hoping under 10 minutes. But I understand if not, whatever. We'll make it work. The point being, put it in there and we'll talk about it. That said, I want to get a sense of what different media consumers are talking about. People who watch old-fashioned television, people who browse social media, people who watch international television. I went and did a sampling of the media consumption of other folks. On this show, we tend to talk about what lefties are watching because we're trying to find solutions to things. I believe the lefties have it right. But it is good to know how other people are viewing the state of the world. I'll offer my own critique, and if you guys have comments, drop them in the live chat, or if you're watching this later, if you're watching the VOD, drop them there, and we'll discuss. But it's good to check in with the muggles occasionally. J.K. Rowling's sort of fallen out of favor, hasn't she? The normies. Occasionally. How y'all doing? Let's say hi for a minute here. Donald James X, hello. Pinkerbell, good to see you, my friend. Still. Oh, I buried it there. Still delighted by these. I can't wait to see Andrea tomorrow. I'm going to mock her. I have this. Thank you, my friend. Wireless mic. See ya. I just added one before you started. Oh, no. I deleted it. I'm so sorry. Okay, yes, I see folks getting in there and adding these in. Thank you. That first column under A, if you don't mind, is a where you would tell me what the clip's about so I can introduce it. The second column is for the link to the clip. And the third column is suggested by. That's so I can credit you for suggesting that. Toss it in there, my friends. Thank you. Pinkerbell, not a content suggestion, but Pondering Politics just announced he's going full-time. What, as a YouTuber? Good on him. It's a more realistic business model than people think. And I also want to talk a little bit about the business of streaming, because I think it's good to be, at the very least, an informed consumer. So we know what we're talking about when we ask these companies to act a certain way. I'm going to talk a little about that as well. But good on them. I compare YouTube, not YouTube, really just streaming with independent media as being an actor. I see them as being very much the same in terms of how they are perceived by the greater public and how they really do function. I really can't stress this enough. I've told stories on this channel of being a Michigan-based actor. If you're not in it for fame, like if you're not viewing this as I'll only be happy if hordes of people know my name, and you're just viewing it as a way to make some scratch, being an actor is fantastic. Act in local commercials. Help the local dealership put together a little skit about why you should buy cars from them. First of all, I think it's harmless. it's one of the few professions where you don't have to think terribly much about what you're doing morally. You're making ads. It pays fantastic for the work you put in, and the only cost is showing up to auditions. If you can afford to travel to your local agency, it's great. Occasionally they'll need someone that looks and sounds like you for a thing, and they'll say, we'll give you $1,000 to work an afternoon over on the other side of the state, and say these cars are fantastic. Go pretend like a couple of child actors and another adult are your family, and go like this. We love Honda. $1,000. Really recommend it. YouTube's not much different. Can you make a living, or streaming's not much different. Can you make a living doing it right away? No, you've got to build up. I estimate about 40,000 subscribers before you can like even afford an apartment with roommates. You know, you need a lot. But that doesn't mean you earn nothing on the way there. I've got this just barely paying for itself at this point. So it doesn't, as of you guys signing up for memberships, it doesn't drain my bank account further to do this. It sustains itself pretty close. I just forgot that I had to repay for the website. That'll be a hurdle to jump in about a week. But it's my point to you watching is that if you've been considering trying it and you think, oh, I'll never have the 1 million subscribers I'm fantasizing about, don't. If that happens, neat, but that's not what to look at. Just look at it as, can I get 1,000 subscribers? And the answer is probably yes. If you're willing to work at it, probably you can. Food for thought. You know what? As long as we're talking about the actual streaming side of things, there is one clip I want to play for you guys. Going to do things a little bit different. Let me show you this. I occasionally try to express to you guys why I personally am okay with YouTube taking a cut. You know, they say they take 30% of payments you guys sent. The reason I'm okay with that is expressed best by this fella named Thor, who I'm going to play for, his middle name, but who I'm going to play for you in a moment. But here it is in my words first. This ain't free. I come from a world where you have to be intimately familiar with not just the cost of having human beings in the building, but the cost of actually sending the data out to people. I sold cell phones and home security and tablets and all data-related personal use things. And I worked in TV, where part of the cost of doing business was powering the towers. I worked at a radio station, where I literally had to factor that in. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars to shoot that signal out across the world. if you start your own website and say, I'm not going to use YouTube at all, I'm going to just take all the money for myself, you also then have to provide that massive amount of infrastructure. Here's Thor from Pirate Software breaking down what the actual cost is. In this case, the example is Twitch.
Let's go in here. We're going to say that I've streamed for about 8 hours right now. We're going to say that we have 9,000 viewers right now. We're going to put the average at about 8,000. If every one of you is watching at 1080p and you have been the whole time, it costs Twitch $4,360 to run this stream. That's how that works. That is why Twitch is losing money. This is the reason. You do that for every streamer on the platform. Now, you remember, if we're at 720p, it's $2,000. If it's 480p, it's $1,100. Per year? No. Per this stream.
It adds up. And we are, believe it or not, now this is why I want you guys who tend to be more socially conscious of this stuff. You know, the details, we could go over that again and be intimately familiar with it. The point is, a reasonably sized audience actually costs money per moment watched for these companies to put out. Now, why do I want you guys, a bunch of very socially conscious viewers, to be aware of that? We're in the halcyon days. We're in the very, very early days of this type of entertainment. One day in the near future, when we have gotten over the impending threat of doom that fascism represents, when we've taken control of the U.S. government and frankly governments around the world and actually started handling our serious problems to the point where we don't need to fret about them constantly because smart people are on it. That's when these conversations are gonna. You'll find they start cropping up. It's such a massive operation. YouTube, Twitch, even Facebook as a video hosting platform. Anything that hosts videos as a service, there's so many users that we will actually have to be considering things like how much heat do their servers generate. If they own 30,000, I'm just making up a random number. Let's just say, keep it nice and round, 10,000 buildings around the world that bounce their signal around. How much heat do those actually generate? How much electricity do they use? Is it unnecessary? You know how Netflix just auto-plays the next thing, and even if you're asleep, it's still drawing data and just playing to an empty room? That might become illegal just because it's inefficient. How many spam emails do you get that you never even open? Well, that data costs energy to send. Even if it's a tiny amount, it costs energy to send. It costs energy for your software, which is your email in that case, to process and to acknowledge and do the two general problems. Send back a signal saying, got it. We're far away from things like email having restrictions put on it because that's such a small amount of energy. But with video, it's not. It's really not. And in fact, we're not terribly far away, I think, from the days where we have to get serious about regulating that. Doesn't mean things fundamentally change. It just means this idea of it being an infinite pool of energy to draw from will go away. And frivolous use of it will be clamped down on. How does that tie into the payment model? Well, YouTube currently, whether you like the amounts or not, the principle of their payment model, I think, is quite fair. They take a cut, 30% in this case. That's a pretty standard cut. They take a cut of the actual payments that go through, and they allow very small time channels like mine to engage in business. But at the same time, they don't allow teeny tiny channels to engage in business. That's huge to me. That's the way I feel most of these places should work. The reason being, there is a hurdle to get over so that a bot farm can't just make a 1,000 randomized channels and spew out useless content and clog the algorithm with this nonsense and collect $1 here and there. But small creators can essentially go and pursue the dream that anybody who's worked in TV has had, which is they don't need to build all this infrastructure. All they need to do is essentially show that they're serious about attempting to monetize their channel. I think that's a good way to do it. If you guys are ever considering giving me money through YouTube, and you say, but I don't want to support YouTube, know that that goes directly against my hopes. I do want to support what YouTube is doing right now. I like it. I've basically set up the business end of this around that. I want to encourage this company to keep behaving that way. There's plenty of things YouTube does that annoy me. I won't praise those, but this, I do. I think it's a good way to run a video hosting service and a streaming service, which is what YouTube does as well, which is also pretty good. But as Thor points out, the business model, in my opinion, and apparently is as well, is a lot more shaky. And I'm a lot less. I'm not even worried about it because I've put most of my efforts into YouTube. But I'm not as excited about diving into Twitch because I imagine it in the long term needing major overhaul. Now, I don't think it's going to go away. It's too well known, but I think it's going to require a major overhaul. And I will then, as a content streamer on Twitch, have to change how I do things in a major way, and that just sounds like a headache. So now you know. Now I've with the assistance of a more sharp lad, I've explained why it is I like the YouTube system. Now, that said, if you genuinely can't bring yourself to give money to YouTube, and you really want to give money to your old pal Jake, I do have a Ko-fi page. That's Kofi. I like the way they do things as well. I pay them $5 a month. That's a flat fee, and whatever you give me on Ko-fi goes to me. That's a good one, too. But I'm not hosting video through. Not out of principle. It's just unnecessary work. There you go. Now let's talk about real news. Oh, well, look at that. Speaking of, thank you, Sandy. Viva YouTube. Yes, indeed. $4.99 super chat. I appreciate it. Donald James, I like your sweater, Jake. Well, I appreciate that too. The Mike's Dead show. Doesn't that monetization process affect your art? Not at all. That is one of the many things I really like about it. The monetization of it it's just like it's a blanket deal for everybody. I will say this: the ads affect the art you can do. The way YouTube runs ads, they value different kinds of content differently, and it's not unreasonable, by the way. The way they do it, it's pretty much exactly the way TV does it. Certain types of shows can run or run more expensive ads. So if you have a woodworking channel, you're running pretty expensive ads, actually, because they're selling tools and whatnot. If you've got a kids channel, it's actually very cheap, the ads. If you've got a news and politics channel, the ads cost more, actually. And they generate more money, and you get more money. You'll note I don't have ads on the live show anymore. Because I just don't want to be thinking about it. Because you're right, that does affect it. But the super chat system, that I don't need to think about. That is an extraordinarily straightforward deal. Not a perfect deal. If I could negotiate, I'd probably try to weasel out a couple more percents for your old pal there. But 30% cut is standard across most similar platforms. It's like been the thing people have just agreed on, that this is worth it, I guess. And I'll take it. Yeah, that works for me. To not have to buy a server in some place, and the ability to send out that signal, and all the algorithm work, and all the maintaining, and all the setting up of YouTube Studio and all that stuff. Sure, that's worth to me 30% of the thing, and it doesn't need to affect the content. I could be talking about the kinds of suits I like instead, and it would pay the same. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Ads are annoying on live streams. Yeah, I don't like it. And I've stopped doing ads in the middle of videos as well. I had that turned on by default for some reason. That's off. So now ads are at the beginning and the ends of videos. I think that's a fine place to put it. I also think I want to target, as much as I do currently rely on super chats, I do as we expand the channel, I don't want the average folks that we start, I want to cash in on people who don't have money watching the video, because that's a way to have people with no money generate income for a cause. Steal it from corporations, basically. It feels sneaky, and it might be sneaky, but the people selling ads don't need to know about it. Marianne, good to see you. I don't mind ads in the middle for other shows. I just don't like them during a live. Yeah, I don't like them. Well, I get what you're saying, because I get what you're saying. I agree. On the live, it's dumb, because then how do you catch up? You miss part of the show. But I just don't want to break up the flow. If you're into one, it doesn't matter. Now we're going beyond stuff that I've really thought out a presentation for. But I do think I do like where we've landed so far. Let's talk about what people are watching on CNN. Damn it, on TV. Had a look at CNN recently, and was delighted to see that the channel that has been pushing itself as the Fox replacer, either they're going in the other direction and they're saying, okay, that didn't work. Folks aren't leaving Fox and coming to us. They're leaving Fox and going to OAN. Or they said, we're going to replace Fox for the centrists. All this means is they're fine cashing in on dunking on Trump, and good. That is what your TV watching relatives and community need to hear. Trump bad, here's why.
New tonight, Trump's latest target, the president of the United Auto Workers, the target of 2 verbal assaults within hours of each other from the former president. Trump posting today in part, quote, Sean Fain is a weapon of mass destruction on auto workers and the automobile manufacturing industry in the United States. All auto workers should, all caps, vote for Trump. Just hours earlier.
Let me just remind you real quick why there's beef between these guys. Sean Fain represents the working man and woman. Trump does not. During the auto workers strike, Trump spoke in front of the scabs and on the bet that the American populace would be dumb enough to see him supporting workers. Yeah, the scabs, the people betraying their class. The reason this is particularly bad for Trump is he has pretended to be a populist. So to have Sean Fain tearing into him, oh, that's good. Good for democracy.
Trump bashed Fain by saying this. He's a real, all caps, stiff, who is selling the automobile industry right into the big, powerful hands of China. Get rid of this dope and vote for DJT. Trump admitting his initial attack was because of this interview where Fain did not hold back in explaining why he has chosen to endorse Biden instead of Trump.
Donald Trump has a history of serving himself and standing for the billionaire class, and that's contrary to everything that working class people stand for.
Sean Fain is out front now, so...
Thank God, for the record. Thankfully, Sean Fain has decided to grow a beard. It's a good look on Fain. He looks sharp. I like it.
Sean, Donald Trump says you are a weapon of mass destruction, that you are a stiff, and that you are a dope, said all those things today. What do you even, how do you even respond to that?
Well, thanks for having me, Aaron. First off, the weapon of mass destruction against the automotive industry has been two words: corporate greed. This is Trump. Trump always resorts to name calling because the facts are very clear, and he doesn't want to talk about the truth. He talks about what, during his presidency, the phrase came out, alternative facts, or what we all call lies. He wants to make this election about anything but real issues. And, this isn't about me or Donald Trump. I don't care what Donald Trump says about me. I don't care what he thinks about me. I care about facts. And the facts are very clear for the large majority of Americans. The working class people have been left behind by Trump's billionaire class, the billionaire buddies, and the economy that only works for the wealthy. And, you look, 1970, I read this the other day from the Economic Policy Institute.
Yep.
From 1979 to 2022, the top 0.1% of wage earners, wages increased 344%. The bottom 90% increased 32%. So this is an economy that Trump dreams of. This is what he wants. He doesn't give a damn about working class people, and that's what this is all about.
All right, so one thing that he is connecting with in some way is a sentiment that at least has grown within unionized households, right? And that is a shift over time politically. You've admitted this yourself, Sean. You said there are rank and file members of the UAW that Trump does appeal to. Our Harry Anton was looking at some numbers, and what I'm referring to is a shift over time in overall union member vote towards the Republican, right? Still plus Democrat, okay? But there's been a shift, right, Sean? So in 1948, it was 62 points, plus 62 Democrat. 1992, that had been cut in half to 31. And by 2020, it was down to 22% advantage for Democrats. Still an advantage, but that's obviously a massive erosion. Why do you think it is that many of your members...
Let me tell you something. I am positive with with Fain's recent... No, not just Sean Fain, although he deserves tremendous credit for this. With Sean Fain's, with the leadership of these unions getting off their butts and not acting like Democrats, the amount of union members who are going to vote for Democrats going up. The reason being, people are getting savvy. The Democrats have basically been looking for excuses to bow down to big business, but they have been reluctantly the supporters of the common folk. It got really bad in the days of Reagan to Clinton and onward. But basically, there's fight now, and in that fight, there is necessarily knowledge being passed down. It's been clear who the opposition to the things that these workers want is. It's the conservatives every single time. And if it's a Democrat, it's a conservative Democrat. It's going to make it clear. Let's see what Sean Fain said.
Members do not see this the way that you do.
Well, look, I'll say it's been a masterful plan by the billionaire class and the corporate class. I mean, they, over the last 40, 50 years of our lives, have played the greatest game they always play, and that's divide and conquer. They divide the masses over single issues. And meanwhile, they run away with all the money, all the profits, and things get worse for us. What we have to do as organized labor, we have to lead the fight, and we have to lead the dialogue with facts. And that's why our contract campaign was so successful with the big three. That's why 75% of Americans sided with us in that fight, because we were focused on the things that matter most to working class people: wages, better wages, retirement security, healthcare, better healthcare for everybody, and getting our time back. It's shameful through all of this. Working class people are working harder and longer than we ever have. They're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, working multiple jobs, and they're scraping to get by. That's the economy Donald Trump loves. That's the economy that the billionaire class loves, and it doesn't work for working class people. And I think when we focus on the core issues that matter most to working class people, we'll see a difference in how the election goes.
So, Sean, I know that you did not, you had ruled out meeting with Trump, but the Teamsters Union is not doing that. They've got 1.3 million members, right? Massive union. Trump is meeting with union members and leaders this week. There's a event he's hosting on Wednesday. Earlier this month, he met with the head of the Teamsters Union at Mar-a-Lago. Do you have any?
At no point did Trump say, let me get some of those unions in here. Let me get some of those unions. I want to talk to them. Somebody said, hey, here's the next guy you're talking to. He does X. Here's the next gal you're going to talk to. She does Y. I really want to stress something. Donald Trump's campaign, it might be about getting elected president eventually. Right now, I'll tell you what it's about. It's about paying his legal bills. He's looking for donors to pay his bills. I'm pretty sure he's straight up out of money. At least liquid assets, because he's not paying some pretty significant, pretty embarrassing legal bills. These folks that are meeting with him, I hope they have the foresight of Sean Fain. I hope they are not trying to backdoor their way into the ruling class. I hope they understand that the people they represent aren't going to put up with them showing favor to the very people who are making their union members' lives harder. I hope. We'll see.
Feel for how this is going? Do you know the head of the Teamsters Union? Do you think that he could be getting their endorsement?
Look, I've talked to Sean O'Brien. I respect Sean O'Brien. He's a good leader, and look, they've had good success in that union, done great things. And I'm not going to try to even speak for what their decision is. All I can speak for is from our perspective and what we've seen and the facts we've seen. And it's really clear for us. It's a very clear picture when you put the two candidates side by side. I mean, you go back to the economic recession. Joe Biden stood with the American worker. Donald Trump blamed the American worker. He blamed the workers for everything that was wrong with the big three back then.
Boom.
Joe Biden gave us a path forward. You go to when Trump was president in 2019, Lordstown Assembly Plant in Ohio was slated to close. Trump blamed the local president, told people don't sell your houses, and did nothing. In 2019, when GM was on strike, what did Donald Trump, then the president, say? He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. In 2023, Boom. Joe Biden, when we were on strike, he came out and stood with the workers. He joined us on the picket line. Belvedere Assembly Plant in Illinois was slated for closure in 2023. That community was written off for dead. Joe Biden worked with us to not just get one plant. We got that plant revived and another plant to be built there and save the community. So there's a stark contrast in these candidates. Joe Biden has spent a lifetime serving others and serving the working class. Donald Trump spent a lifetime serving himself.
Oh, that's brutal. Just brutal. And accurate. One thing I think I'm seeing lefties get a lot more comfortable with and is understanding the difference between supporting someone because you like them and supporting someone because it's part of a strategy. When you want to explain to people on the left who don't want to support Biden why they should, I would point to things like that, like the fact that he actually went out and supported striking workers. Does that wash him of his sins? No. Nope. Not at all. But it shows you how we can use the man. It shows you one possible thing we can do with him. More importantly than that, to me, is that the people in unions will see why they should not support Donald Trump. And even larger than that, why they should not support conservatives. Hopefully, we have eyes open wide enough that they recognize that Joe Biden is a slightly to the right of center politician. Let me try that again. Joe Biden is a conservative, and Donald Trump is a far-right extremist. Hopefully they'll realize that and say, okay, it looks like it's Biden now and a much better choice next time. I'm going to work on that starting November 6th. I'm going to look for our next proper presidential candidate we haven't had in decades, frankly. But as long as the lesson is learned with people like Sean Fain going out there and just explaining why they have beef with folks like Trump, I think we're going to start doing a hell of a lot better. I really do. I would like to know what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments. We're going to talk about it. Meow. James Fox, wash that sin right out of my hair. Didn't Julie try that? I don't follow the Julie thing, but I like the idea of washing that sin right out of my hair. No, I really want to stress, and we're going to talk about Israel in a moment, but I really want to stress it's not even, oh, Biden isn't perfect on this or that. No, it's there's serious problems with Biden. There is unforgettable sins that must be addressed. That guy, and nonetheless, I'm still, as of now, advocating for a vote for him in November. I just don't want. Am I? Yeah, I guess I am. But this does not come from my personally thinking he's a great president. It's from my disenchantment with what the office of president actually is. It's a thing that is, best I can put it for now, is a defensive vote. We could have and the reason it's a defensive vote, hear me out on this, is because if we get a far left president, a super progressive president, nothing good happens still, or at least very little good happens. If we get a centrist president, nothing good happens. And if we get a far right president, lots of bad things happen. Why do we not have anything good happen if we get a far left president? Because there's no far left infrastructure. There's no far left bills that will be passed and get on their desk. So they can't sign them. They could do executive orders, but those only last so long. They only go so far. The fact of the matter is there's no far left political movement, and there's the desire for one. So since we are in the position we are in now, the way I sees it is it's a defensive vote. You're voting for the least harm you can, while also trying to build a far left infrastructure for the next president. Rex Trek. Americans trust him. He could be our Zelensky. I don't think Biden could be. Unless, you're talking about somebody else. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Focus on Senate and House. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that means we should give up on directing Biden or pressuring him to do this, that, or the other thing. Or if we think we can replace him with, some out of nowhere rising star, great. It's just, that's not an efficient use of our energy, I think. Marianne McDermott says your trans friends need to support Biden. Unfortunately, there are other genocides happening too. Yeah, isn't that just a peach? I can't stress enough, this is one of those situations where I may advocate voting for him in November, and fully understand if nobody decides to vote for him. I couldn't blame him. And even if I did advocate for voting for him in November, I'm still going to advocate that he face criminal charges for having a hand in this genocide. Truly, the fact that'll be the next segment, I believe. I don't think that we can. I don't think we should put this genie back in the bottle. Trump's getting actual charges now. Good. He deserves them. Let's show that we are fair-minded, and in 2026, charge Biden for his involvement in genocide. I'm so down for that. Rex Track. Oh, Jon Stewart. Yes. Jon Stewart is fantastic, and he's coming back to The Daily Show, baby. I love it. Ooh. Yes, Rex Trek with the very kind $5. Thank you, sir. John, I was saying Jon Stewart could be our Zelensky in 28. I'd vote for him, and Americans trust him overall. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Guy comes from TV, but he actually has an understanding of politics. Got the charisma, he's got the heart. I think he's a great choice. I think that, if not him, that sort of person is fantastic. James Fox, a little slow, but when you are so busy passing bills. Yeah. Oh, Wicked Foxy Dragon saying, but Bernie is not running. Yeah. James Lawson, BOTFC had a recent video called How to Change U.S. Foreign Policy that addressed the issue pretty well. My friend? Batfk. I was going to say I was going to look it up, but what is BOTFC? Let me know. Where's Pinkerbell? Yeah, Pinkerbell, I gotta say, I don't want to call out everybody, but Wireless Mike and the rest of the gang who are coming in from the South, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the guts you have. Thank you for ensuring that this country isn't pure chaos. That we aren't totally polarized. Thank you for fighting the good fight in the hardest places there are to do it. You're a mensch. Let me say this: coming out of Texas is also Aaron Ra. He's another streaming personality, somehow more eccentric than I am. But he had the balls to run for office as well. And I am delighted by that guy. If you ever catch him in your town, I know he does live shows sometimes. Worth a look. It's a lot of fun. Wicked Foxy Dragon. I don't want to call out anyone but Wireless Mike. No, I mean, he's talked about it publicly before. I just mean I don't want to call out anybody if you've told me in private where you're from. But Wireless Mike on the stream says he's from. Well, now I'm terrified. He says he's. Did he say yes? Yes, he did. When we were talking about that mayoral candidate, he says he is from the South frequently. Rex Trek, seriously, I'm in New Jersey, mostly blue, and I still can't stand it. Yeah, I'm the same way. My mayor was on MSNBC recently talking about how he won't support Biden. I should have pulled that clip. He's literally my mayor. I should have interviewed him. What am I doing? Never mind. I'm going to call his office and try to interview him. Make it real awkward. There's the update, though. My mayor is cool as hell. I've already talked about him, actually, on this channel. You know what? We were going to talk about Trump and Judge Ludick. But we're going to skip to something. Texas had a female governor, Kay Bailey Hutchinson. Ah, yes. Very good, Sandy from Environmental Coffee House. Heads up, folks, she's on in about 45 minutes. At the end of this show, we are going to segue right into Sandy's show. Enjoy that. Wireless Mike, Nashville, baby. I didn't want to say it. If you weren't comfortable, I didn't want to say it. All right. Thank you, Mike. I will check my email. Every time I restart my computer, it logs me out of that account, and it's fine. I can just log right back in, but every time I forget. I had a handwritten note at one point on my monitor telling me to log back in, so I would actually receive emails, and I didn't. That's why we started doing the Discord like we did, because that I am required to log into, otherwise I miss left past 10. So I just bundled that. I like to put all my eggs safely one basket. You understand? But nothing could possibly go wrong. All right, let's talk about war crime. Well, if you want to know what the rest of the world is saying about the genocide in Gaza, great way to do that is watch international television. I'm a fan. I started doing this, funny enough, during the U.S. invasion of the Middle East broadly that happened over the course of the roughly last 20 years. Because you just couldn't get an honest word about it from U.S. television. Well, it's great to frequently check in with the international crowd. Here they are.
When News at 10 first broadcast pictures of a Palestinian man in a group carrying a white flag in Gaza who was shot dead, the Israeli military told us it was not aware.
I want to be clear about something. They show the shooting. I will not. If you have the guts for it, or you feel it's necessary, if you both have the guts for it and feel that it's necessary that you view this person being shot, the link is in the description. I'm not going to show it here. I feel like you only have to watch that stuff if you're advocating for the people doing the shooting. But if you already know about how hard that is to carry on your heart, there's no need to put yourself through more suffering. You're already motivated in the way you got to be motivated. You're aware of the facts, in other words. So, we're going to skip past it. But trust, it happens. The link's in the description if you want to watch the full clip.
Of the incident. It then said we had edited the pictures. Those pictures last week prompted accusations of an Israeli war crime from around the world. Now an Israeli general has come close to owning up, saying his troops were in the area and there are mistakes. This is war, he said.
The funeral of a husband and a father. A Palestinian civilian shot dead under a white flag and with his hands up. Ramzi Abu Salul was killed in southern Gaza on Monday of last week. He was one of 5 men waiting to see if Israeli soldiers positioned a few hundred meters away would let...
Look at that white flag. Hands in the air. What more do you need?
...them cross battle lines to rescue relatives.
Okay, so I'll give you a brief discussion, brief summary of what that chunk is that I just skipped. They walk down the street. There's 3 gunshots. One of them falls over. That's the fellow whose funeral you saw there. You know, just wrapped in a cloth and tossed in a shallow grave. That was from people that cared enough about him to bury him, but that's all they could do, given the situation the Israeli Defense Force has put them in. 3 shots, he falls down. Briefly, from the first camera angle you see, the footage cuts out. Then it cuts back into the aftermath just a moment later. The Israeli Defense Force accused them of faking that footage. They accused them of that, given that gap. What happened? What happened? Well, it turns out, because this is 2023, there was another angle. Somebody was filming it on their cell phone. Filled in the gap, there was nothing to hide. Why did it cut out for a moment? Because the cameraman was terrified. They were running away. Put down their camera, booked it. Then they realized they were panicking, turned around, turned their camera back on, kept filming. The individual incident is less important than what you can glean from it. They were lying. The Israelis were lying. Why were they lying? Why did they feel like they needed to lie? Now they're saying, "Oh, it's wartime. It's very it's very confusing, you know." Remember back when Rashida Tlaib was getting her chops busted for saying that Israel blew up that hospital? By the way, if you weren't paying attention since then, Israel did blow up that hospital. That one was the Israelis. And they've blown up several more since. And they lied about it every time, too. I came out against my own representative. Foxy, you can note this. I said it. I came out against her. I said she should apologize. Yeah, we didn't have the full information. Because that's what you do when you operate based on the principle of thing. At the time, we didn't have full information. But Israel knew what happened here. They were in charge of the troops that did the shooting. They either knew they killed this person who was waving a white flag, or they knew they didn't have the full information. So to say that we didn't do that was a lie. Even if they didn't know whether they did or they didn't. To say they definitely didn't, that was a lie. And they do this all the time. They're acting like angels until you can absolutely 100% catch them red-handed. Think about all the things we haven't caught red-handed. Think about all the people who didn't have another camera angle. Think about all the people who were just mowed down. And the footage is gone forever because it's in a cell phone that got tossed on top of their body and then kicked off into a ditch. That's how Israel's behaving with this. Let's watch the rest of it.
While I was trying to film, I noticed many military vehicles. I kept glancing back and forth between the vehicles and the group of men. I noticed a laser beam coming from the direction of the tank. Then I heard sniper fire.
The American network ABC News was among the international broadcasters who aired our story.
The cameraman of our partner network, ITV.
ABC were taken into Khan Yunis by the IDF at the weekend, and they asked the commander of Israeli forces in southern Gaza about the shooting of Mr. Abu Salul. The Brigadier General was forthright.
Your area of operation. Waving a white
flag.
Oh,
you're talking about that incident?
Yeah, that incident.
We're investigating that incident.
A man holding a white flag,
yes, I'm
unarmed, shot dead.
I'm investigating.
Those are your troops?
Yes, yes. Those are my troops, and I'm investigating that incident. That is not the way we carry out our rules of engagement. No, we don't fire at people waving white flags. We don't fire.
Do you remember when I said I've seen this happen many times? It's the internet, baby. You can see all the war footage you want. Go to a website if you want to know how to be really good at verifying whether or not what you're seeing is real or not. There's a website called Bellingcat. If you want to do online journalism, get familiar with the techniques used by Bellingcat. They do this all the time. I've seen verified footage of them shooting unarmed women crossing the street. Multiple people waving white flags. They're not interested in treating anyone brown as a human being. No Palestinians are humans in their eyes. Now, you already, if I understand this crowd correctly, you don't need to be sold on the fact that the IDF is not a terribly kind organization. The point I'm trying to make, especially if you are an American or an ally of Americans, like your country is a well-known ally of the U.S., we've been through this. We know this already. We've done this before. When did we do this? 9/11, man. This exact thing happened. The saying, the use of human shields and the intentional confusing of facts by people who know, this hollow promise to investigate a thing. At some point, we have to acknowledge that we can't take this guy's word for it. He's not an honest actor.
Fire at civilians.
But you do sometimes.
We don't. Every incident.
They did.
It is a mistake, and they are mistakes. We are not perfect. We are in a combat zone under great threat to our people. We investigate every mistake that is done.
Asked for a comment about this interview, the IDF press office said the Brigadier General meant that his men were in the vicinity at the time and that the incident was being looked into.
So, John, a significant development. Could there be any repercussions, do you think?
Good evening, Julie. This may constitute a war crime, but will it ever be a proven one? I very much doubt it. That would necessitate matching the bullet in the dead man's chest with the gun that fired it and finding who pulled the trigger. Now, the Brigadier General says there will be an investigation, but...
Yeah, they're investigating. Really? Really? How so? What's their plan? What do they think they're going to discover?
The results may well prove inconclusive. And even if they do find that Israeli soldiers were responsible, it's unlikely any action will be taken. After all, no action has been
as opposed to who?
Taken against the Israeli soldiers that were...
Let me put it like this. The thing he just said, if they find out, I'm not trying to criticize him. I'm just trying to really make this clear for you, what he is saying. He said if they find out Israeli soldiers were responsible, as opposed to who? They've confirmed now the IDF has confirmed multiple times Israeli soldiers were in the area. Well, do you think they were playing patty cake with Hamas fighters? No. No, if Israeli soldiers are in an area and they are not currently firing. That means Hamas soldiers are not in view. You might say, well, they thought these fellas were the enemy. Remember the white flag? That's the purpose of that. So that as soon as you see someone, you can tell not an enemy. Or hell, if they are an enemy, they're giving up. White flag, don't shoot. No guns on them, don't shoot. Unless, of course, they're really there to do something else, which is get rid of all the people who live there.
We're definitely responsible for what is, from Israel's point of view, the most heartbreaking of these white flag incidents. Back in December, 3 Israeli hostages who managed to extricate themselves from the clutches of Hamas were shot dead by Israeli soldiers while waving a white flag. Now, there have been no disciplinary procedures taken against those soldiers. I think one of the consequences
managed to escape one group of terrorists, got mowed down by another.
Of something like the shooting of Mr. Salul is it makes Israel's allies increasingly uncomfortable. The Americans and the British have talked repeatedly about the great loss of innocent lives in this war, and that's why the push for another ceasefire is gathering pace. Apparently, we're closer to another ceasefire, Julie, than we've ever been since the last one collapsed, back in November. Now, mediators know that the most welcome benefit of another ceasefire would be saving innocent lives, including those of the Israeli hostages still in Gaza tonight.
John, thank you very much indeed for that.
Okay, so here's what I'm talking about with U.S. power. If Donald Trump gets in office, Benjamin Netanyahu knows he has got a free check to do whatever he wants, as brutally as he wants. There doesn't even need to be that little interview given where they say we're investigating. They'll just say, wrong place, wrong time, get out of my way. It's not much better, frankly, with Joe Biden in power, vetoing UN resolutions. Not much better. But the gross thing that we nonetheless have to consider in this is that we have a whole summer to look forward to. The International Court of Justice has now asked Israel to prevent a genocide from happening. We know that Israel will not do that because they're there to enact a genocide. But with something like the International Court saying that this needs to be considered, that Israel's actions are not acceptable, the political winds have an opportunity to change. If the people who are campaigning now for office are hearing that you care passionately about actual justice, if your head is out of your rump, you're one of the few Americans who's breathing fresh air. The way they talk about Israel will change to please you. If you make a big deal when you're talking to these folks who are trying to stay in power, if you make a big deal about Israel and they don't listen to you and they get primaried, that will have a huge effect as well. I'm not saying forgive Joe Biden for his behavior here. I'm saying pressure him in other ways that we haven't tried yet, because what we have tried hadn't done a whole lot. I would recommend you put pressure on everybody who's running for office to support the Palestinian people, to support an end to the genocide. And mean it. Support people who will actually take steps to end this nightmare. Because we have too many we're dealing with already. We just do. There's no need for this new horror. It is exactly what I was afraid of in 2020 when Joe Biden was won the primary. It was exactly what I was afraid of. And now we're here. And with the same presumed foresight, could have been luck too. But if I was right on that, not by coincidence, but because I understand how centrists work, then I would say the way to change their behavior is threaten their power and show Joe Biden examples of what the left will think and do. Change the conversation. Let's make it serious. Only thing these monsters care about is themselves. So put their jobs on the line. Wireless mic, and now Netanyahu is using the phrase "from the river to the sea," and the people who made Tlaib out to be a monster over it don't say a damn thing about Bibi saying it. Yeah, Pinkerbell, I think, responding correctly to you here. He's rubbing in their faces. I agree, and it works because he understands Americans. He knows we truly don't pay attention, by and large. You guys do. He knows you're the exception. Donald James, that's true. Some could lose their seats for not supporting Palestine. I can believe that. Absolutely. And we only need a couple of examples to genuinely scare these folks. Democrats are like a herd of chickens, just clucking and panicking constantly. Panic them. Donald James X, as cynical as I am, I can believe that some reps could lose their seats supporting Israel's genocide. Oh yes. Oh yes. And it's because you're doing the mental math here. It doesn't take as many votes. The larger the office, the more broad your appeal has to be, which means the more basic your messages and your policy is, and the understanding of your average voter is going to be. It's just how it works. House, very specific issues. House, very complex things can be understood and communicated because their districts much smaller. Senate, half a state. They're going to be very, very broad, but there's still going to be generally somebody who speaks for their region. President, that's going to be the most difficult thing to change. That's why you need them to be truly a leader. That's why there was excitement about Obama and Trump, because they set the tone. Unfortunately, now we have a president who does not set the tone. He just rides what he sees as he rides the wave of popular opinion as he sees it. But leftists are not taken very seriously right now because we don't take very seriously the seats of power that would most represent us. But we're starting to. The squad didn't come from nowhere, baby. If you are in a very blue district, go to your representative and harp on them. If you know what, show them that clip, the description. Show them the VOD I put up of this later. But probably just that clip in the description, because that actually shows the death. And if they aren't supporting an end to the killing over there, then they're the kind of people who have to see the death because they supported what just happened. You don't have to see it because you didn't support it. You already know that's a bad thing. They might need a reminder, and they'll certainly need a reminder that your vote doesn't go to murderers. I don't like showing that stuff, but That is what changed minds about the Vietnam War. Speaking of, I talk a lot about how there are two kinds of Republicans, two kinds of Democrats. Stand by. How there's the corporate types and the populist types. I talk a lot about how centrist Democrats are just, they're the new conservatives. Here's Nancy Pelosi showing us why that is. To redo that intro, I talk a lot about conservative Democrats, how Democrats who are centrist are essentially the new conservatives. Here's Nancy Pelosi demonstrating that very well.
Most of your constituents want beside you. Stop.
That's folks protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's house. Side note, why are we still dealing with Nancy Pelosi? Like Hillary Clinton, get out of here. You are not wanted. You don't help. You have not been liked for some time. Get the f*** out. Be gone. Jesus. Go back to China, she says, where your constituents are. For context, when talking about Israel and Palestine, she recently accused people who support an end to the killing, a ceasefire, a complete withdrawal of IDF forces, etc. She said that they were doing Putin's bidding. Now, you might recognize that as being a true critique of people who are supporting Russia, or people who are supporting peace in Ukraine in the form of Ukraine surrendering to Russia. That actually is Putin's bidding. As in, you can track the Web Brigade currently, you can track the Web Brigade messages and see how they filter out. Again, Bellingcat, very useful. See how they filter out to the internet, the various forums, and then lo and behold, you see people suddenly, through various tracks of reasoning, arriving at the conclusion of the U.S. should really just let Putin have Ukraine. That's a true critique. There. This is what Republicans do. They take something that, they take a true critique of another issue, and they apply it in a nonsensical way to the issue they want to distract about. And they do that because it's confusing to folks who are just glancing at it. Well, she's doubled down. Now she says, she turns to these people who are protesting outside her house, and she says, go back to China, where your constituents are from. If you pause and think about it, that is nonsensical. Thought it was Russia that was doing the propaganda. Now you're saying it's China. It just kind of sounds like you're saying foreigners, appealing to folks who aren't going to pay very close attention. This gives me, believe it or not, a great deal of hope. I'll tell you why in a moment.
Stop the genocide. Stop the Holocaust.
The Democrats want the ceasefire. The Democrats want the ceasefire. The Democrats want the ceasefire.
The Democrats want the ceasefire. Go back to China where your voters is. I don't know why it gives me hope. Because the old guard, the people who are getting the fuck out, although slowly and clinging on to as much power as they possibly can, still having doors being opened for them, riding in the backs of cars, but not in the way true lefties do. No, because they're being driven by their servants. The old guard are using Republican tactics. Nancy Pelosi there is indistinguishable from a Republican, including getting protested by people who actually pay attention to world events and give a damn about them, including using distraction tactics, relying on an underinformed group of supporters, trying to sway the least informed among us, saying things that are nonsensical to people that actually pay attention. So, in other words, not appealing to lefties. Saying something that she knows, she must know. As in, to have the idea, you need to know enough about these topics to know it's a nonsensical idea. She must know is nonsense. It's good that the old school Democrats do that. I want to make one thing. When you are fighting something, anything, whether it's a literal violent fight or a metaphorical political fight like what we're talking about here, you want to give, or it is in your interest, I should say, generally speaking, to give the opposition some place to retreat to, some place to go to, so that they don't fight tooth and nail for your objective. Our objective, let's call it taking over the Democratic Party. It could instead be creating a different party, an actual party that represents the left in the U.S. But we cannot do that while the Republicans exist. I don't want to run every single Republican out of politics. Not because I don't think they deserve it, but because that's too much work. There's going to be some people that cling on for years and years and years and years and years just based on having a super loyal, super uninformed district that they represent. It happens. What I would like instead is to make it very easy for them to, those that aren't the big obvious traitors, I want to give them some place to go. And in my opinion, the Democratic Party is the place for that. Or rather, the old guard Democrats are the people to welcome them, to make alliances with them. The Nancy Pelosi's of this world, there are plenty who are still in power. There's your Joe Manchins, you know? There's your there's your Joe Bidens, for that matter. Your Kamala Harris's. People who don't actually give a damn about leftist politics, not a whit. That group. My hope is that in this election, we win enough progressive seats. We put enough progressives in the House and Senate that the Democrats actually are wrestling with them, are actually the ones who have to be putting the brakes on progress because they've made promises to giant evil corporations. And when that happens, the Nancy Pelosi's of this world, my hope is they will make alliances with the unknown Republicans, the centrist Republicans of this world, the very few that exist still. And that will be their new voting bloc. Or rather, that will be their new caucus. Problem solvers, but as a party. And I won't like them. But guess what? I don't like him now. And clearly, the people aren't a big fan of Pelosi's behavior. It's good to see these folks acting the way they are. It's good to see the old guard start acting more like Republicans, because to me, it tells me things are going in a direction that will result in a better America. Because our opposition very soon is going to be the people that are the leaders of the Democratic Party now, whether they keep the name or we do in the divorce. Whoever gets the House in the divorce, they're, I think, going to be our opposition. And good. I'd rather have Pelosi as the opposition than Trump. At least she'll pretend to care about democracy. Gang, I botched this. I got 10 minutes here. So I'm going to pick the shortest of these videos. Oh, this one's so good. All right. I'm going to pick this this Innuendo Studios video, and the rest, my friends, we're going to do on the next stream. Let me load it up. I'm going to go slightly Andy's open, but that's okay. Oh. Gang, I'm sorry I don't have time to read comments. I pooched that by my word. We got a suggestion here. It is for Innuendo Studios, and I am a fan of the way they use cartoons to talk about politics. Oh my word, I might need to take a page out of their book. Anyway, here is how to counter the Gish Gallop.
Say, for the sake of argument, you're watching a political debate on TV. The conservative candidate has used their opening arguments to dump a truckload of dubious claims on their opponent. Now, you recognize this maneuver. That's the Gish Gallop. The debater makes point after dubious point, and if the other debater doesn't rebut every single one, they will appear to have lost the argument. These points don't have to be good or hard to disprove, they're just...
I would say, as long as you call out the Gish Gallop, you're good, but keep going.
Has to be a lot of them. Oh, but what's this?
4 minutes.
The liberal candidate seems to have come prepared. That's new. They succinctly and efficiently dismantle each of their opponent's arguments, offering a clear rebuttal to every single one. It's obviously not the first time they've heard this particular gallop. So the conservatives' petard has just fully hoisted them. They've lost their own game and have to go on the defensive. Right? Turns out, no. The conservative points to a minor error. Maybe the liberal said their program would cost $40 million, but is actually estimated to cost $43, and treats them as an ignorant sap who can't even count correctly. That is now the subject. Everything else has been forgotten, and the liberal is backpedaling. Wait, you exclaim. How does that work? The liberal has to rebut each and every point, but the conservative takes issue with one and stays in the driver's seat? Are audiences fooled by this? Are liberals that easily snookered? The answer may shock you. You've just borne witness to the reverse Gish Gallop, where an entire argument falls apart if any of it can be disputed. These disputes, again, don't have to be good. They just have to call the airtightness of the argument into question. So a good example of this is how conservatives obsess over gaffes, which, fucking, really? Guys? Some Democrat will be all, conservatives want to shut down post offices as a form of vote suppression. They're pushing voter ID laws, and the post office is where many people get their IDs, and we are relying more and more heavily on mail-in voting. They overwhelmingly try to shut down offices in Black and Latine neighborhoods. Also, a lot of services like healthcare and courts still use physical mail by default, and there can be serious consequences to getting it late. Many elderly people still don't use email, and hey, maybe some of them like getting junk mail. Up, that's it, that's your whole life now. For the rest of your career, you're the asshole who said old people like junk mail. You see, Your mistake was assuming that dishonest people abide by the same rules they impose on everyone else. When I was a teenager, some friends of the family would invite me along when they asked my parents to dinner because I would play with their 5-year-old and let the grown-ups chat in peace. And he'd make up games where we'd bat a balloon back and forth or whatever and change the rules on the fly when it suited him, because the rule wasn't actually you can only touch the balloon once per turn. The rule was Andrew wins. The purpose of a Gish Gallop is to establish a narrative, not through argument or logic, but force and volume. Once established, it takes a lot less effort for them to maintain than for you to establish a new one. If they shake confidence in your argument, the audience will often revert to the previous argument, whether or not that one was ever proven. It's not about which story is true. It's about who sets the parameters for all stories going forward.
Boom.
Who got there first? This is not a debate. This is a Zerg rush. Understand that a dishonest argument is Lego. You haven't
I'll let him finish, because it's almost finished. But I do want to say I have an objection here. It's charisma. We have to... When we're getting rushed by that, we need to address the fact that it's rushed, and then point out that the reason they're doing it is they're weak. Make it about a basic thing, not a specific thing. If they're going to default to that basic technique, then call them a basic bitch.
dismantled it until every single brick is separated. But an honest rebuttal? An honest rebuttal is Jenga.
See, all right, great. First of all, I'm sorry I didn't see who gave it specifically. Great suggestion. I like that. It's true. But I don't like that it says, here's what happens. Isn't that a shame? What? No. Of what use is that, I suppose, to prompt this? Here's how to fight that. When you have somebody doing the Gish Gallop, call it out. Say you're talking about 1,000 different things because you can't support one of them. If you could support one of them fully, that's what you would be talking about now. But you can't. You don't have a case here. I'm going to pick one, the one I want to respond to, because that's what there's time for and you know it. But just know, as I take this punk to pieces, as I take him apart, that makes more sense. As I take this punk apart, I could do this with all their arguments. So you just reframe. That's all you do. You pick, if they are dumb enough to do the Gish Gallop in 2024, name what they've just done. Then you have your selection of things you want to talk about. Pick the easiest thing to respond to, rip them to shreds, and punctuate it by making it clear that everything that punk just said, I could do the same thing to. They've given you a target-rich environment. Just pick one and take them all out, because you're just trying to demonstrate to the audience you're talking to a con artist. Gang, we're wrapping up. Let's read some comments. Wireless mic, that would be me. Thank you. It was a good suggestion. Pondering politics is fan-freaking-tastic. Letter hack. Hell, oh, you bitch. I thought it was a dad joke. Never mind. The letter hack. Good to see you, my friend. An anthropologist was debating a creationist who would literally Gish Gallop, and that's when the phrase came about. Yeah, his name was Gish. And he, not surprisingly, is listed as Kent Hovind lists him as his favorite debater. Kent Hovind, aside from being just like a monster, like an actual horrible human being in real life, is a terrible debater whose entire debate career relies on the Gish Gallop. That's all he does. That's literally all he does. I have watched maybe 100 hours of Kent Hovind debates, and they are all the same thing. clever people to various degrees. I think it's Dwayne Gish. Anyway, take him apart, but does that. Groove Dragon, say a loser says what? John Bailey, good to see you. San Francisco. Tinkerbell, oh my God, what a dunce. Yeah. Kent Hoven's the worst. Oh. Did I see Mars Falcon? Mars Falcon, good to see you, friend. Until we understand that the enemy does not care about facts at all, we will spin our wheels in this heel forever. It's feelings and that is all. Yeah, but then we have to understand what they do care about. They don't care about understanding the facts, but they want to believe that you understand the facts. So that's when you have right-wingers on TV who seem like, you might ask, why do they even bother getting all put together? Or why do they even bother mentioning a fact and saying a wrong thing about it? Or mentioning, like pulling up a chart or what have you and pointing to it. It's because their audience wants to believe they understand what's going on. It's not that their audience wants to understand what's going on. Even if it's a learning channel, they don't actually want to learn things. They want to memorize a thing that they can say that will get them out of a question. But they don't care if they have an actual understanding. That's been my observation. So take that into debate. What do? You demonstrate that you know the facts and that the other person doesn't know the facts, or at least isn't being honest about the facts. In fact, that's even better. And you do that by picking just one thing they talked about, and you point out that you could respond to all these things, except there isn't enough time. So let me use this as an example and understand that I could do this with everything they just said. But the reason they just said 1,000 different things is because they know that, and they're terrified of that. They're terrified of that. They are lying to you. I'm not, so it's going to be slower because I actually want you to understand what I'm talking about. Again, your goal there is simply to demonstrate that you do know. You do know what's up. The other person doesn't. Point is, you just pick one thing. Don't try to respond to everything they have to say if they're using the Gish Gallop. This works in regular old conversations too. You're talking with somebody and they've seen the stuff enough to internalize it, even if they don't know the term Gish Gallop, but they know, ooh, when the people I like get in a pickle, they just start going on and on and on about all kinds of things. Mention that that's what they're doing, and then pick one thing to respond to. And the power is yours. Once again, it's that simple. Gang, I had a blast hanging out with you today. But I kind of want to check out Environmental Coffee House. This stream will redirect there when it ends. So thank you for joining me. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. If I remember that today's a Tuesday, in an hour, I'll see you again soon. Oh, but I won't. Oh, no.